There's nothing better than coming home after a long, relaxing vacation. No emails. No stress. No HOA drama. At least, that's what I thought. Until I pulled into my driveway and saw my house. My entire front side, windows and all, had been boarded up with plywood. I stared in shock. It looked like a condemned building. Like I had been evicted without even knowing it. Lisa, my next-door neighbor and best friend, ran outside the moment she saw me. "Oh my God, Lena, you're finally back," she yelled. I stepped out of my car, still frozen in disbelief. What the actual hell happened to my house? Lisa took a deep breath. Then she said the two words I had been hoping to never hear again. Karen happened. I stormed over to Karen Mitchell's house, fists clenched. The woman who had once tried to ban backyard playsets, sabotage my storm drain, and enforce ridiculous HOA rules was somehow still here. And now? She had boarded up my freaking windows. I pounded on her door. A few seconds later, Karen opened it, wearing her usual smug expression. "Lena," she said sweetly. "Welcome home." I pointed to my boarded-up house. "Karen," I said slowly, "what the hell did you do?" She sighed dramatically. "Oh, I just did you a favor." I blinked. "A favor? You sealed my windows shut." Karen nodded. "Yes, because your windows were too reflective. The sunlight was glaring into my home at all hours. It was ruining my aesthetic." I stared at her, waiting for the punchline. But she was dead serious. Lisa, who had followed me, muttered, "Oh my God, she's insane." I turned back to Karen. "You trespassed onto my property and boarded up my house because you thought my windows were too shiny?" Karen nodded. "I was just ensuring neighborhood harmony. You should be thanking me." I took a deep breath. Then I smiled. Because Karen had just screwed herself over. Big time. The next morning, I made one call. To the city inspector. A man named Tom Ramirez, who had been waiting for an excuse to take down Karen. Within an hour, he was at my house, examining the boarded-up windows. He shook his head. "This is bad." I smirked. "How bad?" He turned to Karen, who was standing on her porch, arms crossed. "Lady, you just violated multiple fire safety codes." Karen blinked. "What?" Ramirez pulled out his clipboard. "Blocking someone's egress windows is a serious offense. If there was a fire, Lena wouldn't have an escape route. This is illegal." Karen's face paled. But I was just fixing the glare." Ramirez ignored her. "You're facing a major fine. And you have 24 hours to remove those boards at your own expense." Karen gasped. "This isn't fair." Ramirez grinned. "Neither is breaking the law." Karen wasn't going down without a fight. That evening, the HOA board held an emergency meeting. Karen, still fuming, stood at the front, demanding the HOA protect her. She waved a printed letter from the HOA's rulebook. "Our guidelines state that all exterior modifications must align with community aesthetics," she argued. Lena's windows were too bright. I was just ensuring visual harmony. I leaned back in my chair, smirking. Then I held up a copy of the city's fire code. "Karen, that rule only applies to voluntary modifications." I flipped to the page I had highlighted. "But fire safety violations override HOA rules." Karen's eye twitched. The HOA president sighed. "Karen, we can't fight this." Karen's mouth fell open. But I was just." The HOA president rubbed his temples. "You're paying for the damage." End of discussion. The room erupted. Karen, for the first time ever, had lost in an HOA meeting. And I had officially won. The next morning, Karen had no choice but to hire a crew to remove the boards. Neighbors gathered to watch the spectacle. Lisa whispered, "This is better than reality TV." Mark, another neighbor, handed me a beer. "She looks miserable." Karen stood on her porch, arms crossed, face red with anger. As the workers ripped down the plywood, someone snapped a photo. By the end of the day, the image had gone viral in the neighborhood Facebook group. The caption? "HOA Queen gets taken down by fire code." Karen was publicly humiliated. And the best part? She was stuck paying thousands in fines and removal costs. After the window fiasco, Karen lost all power in the HOA. No one took her seriously anymore. Her complaints were ignored. Her aesthetic concerns were laughed at. And within 6 months, she moved out of the neighborhood. For good. Lisa and I stood on my porch, watching as the moving trucks drove away. Lisa grinned. Do you think she'll try to run an HOA somewhere else? I smirked. Probably. But that's someone else's problem now. Because in Maplewood Estates, Karen was finally gone. And for the first time in years, life was peaceful. 6 months had passed since Karen fled the neighborhood. And in those months, everything changed. Fire the HOA had lost power. Fire the neighborhood was happier than ever. Fire no one had to live in fear of pointless fines and complaints. For the first time in years, I could just enjoy my home. Then, one morning, I opened my mailbox. Inside was an official-looking envelope, stamped with the words, "Final HOA warning, property non-compliance." I blinked. The HOA was supposed to be done harassing me. I ripped open the letter, and what I read made my stomach drop. Notice of immediate action required. Your property has been flagged for multiple infractions, including non-standard window design, improper aesthetic integration, failure to comply with community beautification efforts. If these violations are not corrected within 30 days, legal action may be pursued. Signed, Karen Mitchell, Compliance Director. I froze. Karen was back. Lisa ran over as soon as she saw my face. What's wrong? She asked. I handed her the letter. She read it, then gasped. Wait, Karen doesn't even live here anymore. How is she signing violation notices? Mark joined us, frowning. Yeah, this doesn't make sense. The HOA barely has any power left. I took a deep breath. Then I grabbed my laptop. And what I found made my blood boil. Karen never really left. She had moved to a new neighborhood, yes. But in those 6 months, she had been working behind the scenes. And now, she had forced her way back into the HOA as compliance director. She wasn't a resident. She wasn't a homeowner. But she had convinced the remaining HOA members that she was the only one capable of enforcing the rules. And now, she was coming for me. That evening, Lisa, Mark, and I crashed the HOA meeting. We walked in, and there she was, Karen, sitting at the front of the room, smug as ever. Lena, she said. I was wondering when you'd show up. I folded my arms. Karen, you don't even live here. How are you back in the HOA? She smiled. Oh, I don't need to live here to enforce community standards. Lisa groaned. That's not how this works. Karen shrugged. It is now. She held up a legal document. In my absence, the HOA board unanimously approved an amendment allowing outside compliance officers to oversee violations. Mark frowned. Who the hell voted for that? Karen smirked. Well, seeing as I convinced the board that the neighborhood was falling into disrepair, they were more than happy to accept my guidance. I gritted my teeth. So let me guess, you came back just to target me. Karen feigned innocence. Not at all. I'm simply ensuring that our community remains beautiful. Lisa scoffed. You boarded up her damn windows. Karen's smile didn't even twitch. And that was well within my right as a community advocate. I took a deep breath. Then I grinned. Because if Karen thought she was going to get away with this, she had no idea what was coming. The next morning, I called my lawyer. A very good lawyer. And together, we torched every single loophole Karen had exploited. Fire, we challenged the amendment allowing outside enforcers. Fire, we filed a complaint with the state's HOA Oversight Commission. Fire, we reported Karen for falsifying legal notices since she had no real authority. And the final blow? We filed a restraining order against Karen. She had trespassed. She had damaged my property. And now, she was facing real legal consequences. The next HOA meeting was absolute chaos. Fire, the state commission ruled that Karen had no authority. Fire, her position as compliance director was revoked. Fire, the HOA was forced to admit that they had given her power illegally. And Karen? She snapped. "This is a travesty," she shrieked. "I have dedicated my life to preserving order. I will not be silenced." The HOA president sighed. "Karen, you are literally not a resident. You have no legal standing." Then, the real bombshell. The state commission announced that Karen would be fined for issuing fraudulent violation notices. Lisa nudged me. "How much?" The commissioner read the number. $15,000 in penalties. Karen screamed. And the HOA? They banned her permanently. No more violations. No more compliance officer role. No more HOA Karen. For good. Karen tried to fight the fines. She lost. She tried to return to the neighborhood. She was barred from entering. And within a year, she had gone bankrupt from paying legal fees. She had spent her entire life trying to control people. Now, she had nothing. Meanwhile, in Maplewood Estates, Fire the HOA was officially powerless. Fire the neighborhood was thriving. Fire and Karen was nothing more than a bad memory. Lisa, Mark, and I sat on my porch, drinking coffee. Lisa sighed. "Think she'll ever try to come back?" I smirked. "She can try." Mark grinned. "But she'll never win. Because now, Maplewood Estates was ours. And no HOA tyrant, not even Karen Mitchell herself, would ever take our homes away again." It had been 6 months since Karen's ultimate defeat. For the first time in years, Maplewood Estates was calm. No HOA fines. No Karen complaints. No drama. Then, one afternoon, Lisa and I were enjoying a quiet moment on my porch when a city worker showed up. Clipboard in hand. "Are you Lena Carter?" he asked. I sighed. "What did Karen do now?" The man frowned. "Well, it's about your HOA." Lisa sat up. "The HOA is basically dead." "What's the issue?" The worker hesitated. "Well, turns out your HOA had outstanding debts. And now that Karen's gone, someone has to pay them." I blinked. Lisa spit out her coffee. Wait. The HOA still owes money." The city worker nodded grimly. $85,000. I nearly fell out of my chair. "What the hell did Karen do?" The worker sighed. "Apparently, before she was ousted, she signed a bunch of contracts. Landscaping, security patrols, even a consultant for community aesthetics. But she never actually paid for any of it." I clenched my fists. Karen was gone, but she had left us with her financial disaster. And now, the neighborhood was on the hook for it. Unless we did something fast. I immediately called a neighborhood meeting. The entire community gathered in my backyard. Mark read the list of unpaid contracts. Lisa pulled up the financial records. And the conclusion? Fire Karen had been funneling HOA money into ridiculous expenses. Fire she had maxed out the HOA's emergency fund. Fire she even used funds to pay for her legal consultation during her downfall. And now, the remaining residents were expected to pay the price. Mark crossed his arms. "I am not paying a dime for Karen's mess." Lisa groaned. "But the city expects someone to cover this debt." I clenched my fists. There was only one person who should pay. Karen. We needed to find Karen. And fast. After some digging, Lisa found out that Karen had moved to a rental home in another town. And guess what? She was trying to join a new HOA. I smirked. "Let's pay her a visit." The confrontation. We drove to Karen's new neighborhood. It was a gated community, because of course it was. But Lisa had already found her exact address. We walked up to her door. And knocked. After a moment, the door opened. And there she was. Karen. Dressed in her usual pressed cardigan, clipboard in hand, looking as smug as ever. But when she saw us, her face turned pale. "Lena," she said slowly. "What are you doing here?" I held up the debt notice. "You forgot something." Karen frowned. "That's not my problem." I smirked. "Actually, it is." Lisa pulled out the financial documents. "You signed every one of these contracts. That means you're liable." Karen scoffed. "The HOA was responsible for payments, not me." Mark grinned. "Yeah, but you were in charge. And the city knows it." Karen's smugness vanished. "Wait, what do you mean?" I handed her a legal notice. "You're being sued for fraud." Karen's face drained of color. You can't do this. Lisa grinned. Actually, we already did. The case against Karen was airtight. Fire, she had signed every contract. Fire, she had misused thousands of dollars in HOA funds. Fire, she had left the entire neighborhood drowning in debt. And the final blow? The city declared that Karen was personally responsible for the unpaid contracts. She owed the full $85,000. By herself. Karen lost it. She tried to fight it in court. She lost. She tried to appeal. She lost again. And when she couldn't pay, Fire, her new HOA kicked her out. Fire, her rental evicted her. Fire, she was forced to sell everything she owned. And within a year, Karen Mitchell was completely bankrupt. 1 year later, the neighborhood was thriving. Fire, the HOA was officially dissolved. Fire, the debt? Wiped out, thanks to Karen's payout. Fire, Maplewood Estates was finally free. Lisa and I sat on my porch, sipping coffee. Do you think Karen is still out there? Lisa asked. I smirked. Oh, she's out there. But guess what? Mark grinned. She has no money, no power, nothing left. And that was the ultimate punishment. Because after all the chaos she caused, Karen Mitchell had been reduced to nothing. And for the first time in forever, she would never be able to control anyone ever again. It had been a year since Karen was financially ruined. I hadn't heard her name in months. No one had. Then, one morning, I got a call from Lisa. And her voice? Shaking. Lena, she whispered. Karen's back. I sat up so fast I nearly fell out of bed. What? Lisa took a deep breath. She moved back. I blinked. Back where? She was evicted. She has no money. Lisa hesitated. She's living in her car. I felt my stomach drop. What the hell is she doing here? Lisa's voice was quiet. She's watching your house. I froze. And then I looked out my window. At the end of the street, there was an old, beat-up Toyota Camry, sitting perfectly still. And in the driver's seat, Karen Mitchell, staring directly at my house. For the next week, Karen's car barely moved. She never approached, never spoke to anyone, never caused trouble. She just watched, like a ghost haunting the neighborhood she lost. Lisa, Mark, and I held an emergency porch meeting. Mark crossed his arms. This is creepy as hell. Lisa nodded. She's up to something. We need to get ahead of this before she starts causing problems. I sighed. She has nothing left. And that's what scared me the most. Because a cornered Karen was still a dangerous Karen. That night, I decided to end this. I grabbed my phone, just in case I needed to call the cops, and walked straight up to Karen's car. She saw me coming, but she didn't move. I knocked on the driver's side window. She hesitated. Then, slowly, she rolled it down. And when I saw her face, I almost didn't recognize her. Her once perfect hair was a mess. Her clothes were wrinkled and stained. Her eyes were sunken, tired, and full of something I'd never seen in her before. Defeat. For the first time in years. Karen Mitchell looked broken. Lena, she said quietly. I need help. I stared at her. After everything she had done. After years of fines, sabotage, lawsuits, and sheer hatred. She was asking for help? Lisa and Mark had followed behind me, watching from a distance. I took a deep breath. And I made a choice. Option 1, revenge. I could call the cops right now. She had no right to be here. She deserved every single bad thing that happened to her. She destroyed people's lives. Tried to control everything. And now? She was reaping what she sowed. I could have her removed forever. I could make sure she never set foot in this neighborhood again. And I would have zero regrets. Option 2, mercy. Or, I could be better than her. I could acknowledge that Karen Mitchell, the tyrant, the nightmare of Maplewood Estates, was already dead. The woman in front of me was just a sad, broken person with nothing left. And maybe, just maybe, the worst punishment of all was making her understand what she had done. I took a deep breath. Then I looked Karen in the eyes. And I said, Karen, why should I help you? She flinched, like she expected me to just laugh in her face. Her voice cracked. I have nowhere else to go. I lost my house, my money, my job. I can't even get accepted into another HOA. Lisa gasped. Wait, you tried to join another HOA? Karen's face turned red. I don't know anything else. That was my life. My purpose. I shook my head. And that's exactly why you lost everything. Karen clenched her fists. I just wanted things to be perfect. Mark scoffed. For who? Because it was never perfect for anyone else. Karen swallowed hard. And for the first time ever, she looked genuinely ashamed. I sighed. You know what, Karen? She looked up. I pointed down the street. Go. Find a real job. Find a real purpose. Because you can't live here. And you can't control people anymore. Her lip trembled. And then, she nodded. No fight. No argument. Just acceptance. She turned the key in the ignition. And drove away. Forever. A month later, Maplewood Estates was better than ever. No HOA. No pointless rules. No Karen. Lisa leaned back on my porch. Do you think she actually took your advice? Mark laughed. Nah. She's probably trying to start a new HOA somewhere else. I shrugged. Maybe. But that's someone else's problem now. Because no matter what, Karen Mitchell was never coming back here. And Maplewood Estates would stand forever. It had been 6 months since Karen left for good. The neighborhood had moved on. Then, one morning, I checked my mailbox and saw an official-looking envelope, stamped with the words, Notice of New Homeowners Association Election. I froze. Lisa, standing next to me, peered over my shoulder. Oh, hell no. I ripped open the letter and read, Dear Homeowner, we are pleased to inform you that Maplewood Estates has been selected for reinstatement under new HOA governance. The election for the new HOA president will take place in 30 days. Sincerely, the Regional HOA Development Committee. I felt my stomach drop, because buried in the fine print at the bottom was a name I never wanted to see again. Karen Mitchell, HOA consultant. Lisa paced in my kitchen, furious. How? We got rid of her. She's banned from living here. Mark scrolled through his phone, shaking his head. She found a loophole. She's not coming back as a resident. She's coming back as a consultant. I clenched my fists. So after all this time, she's still trying to control us? Lisa muttered, This woman has the persistence of a cockroach. Mark sighed. So what do we do? I grinned. Oh, we're going to destroy this HOA before it even starts. We gathered the entire neighborhood. I stood on my porch, holding up the HOA election notice. This is happening whether we like it or not, I said. Lisa stepped up. But here's the thing, we get to choose who runs it. Mark crossed his arms. That means we run. We get on the ballot, we win, and we kill this HOA from the inside. The crowd cheered. And just like that, the homeowners' rebellion was born. Fire Karen's side was backed by corporate HOA lawyers and out-of-town advisors. Fire our side was backed by every single homeowner who had suffered under her rule. We campaigned hard. We put up signs. We knocked on every door. We reminded everyone of what Karen had done. And when election day came, the results weren't even close. Lisa was elected HOA president. Mark became vice president. I became compliance officer, just to make sure no one ever enforced a single stupid rule again. And the first thing we did? We dissolved the HOA permanently. Fire. In front of Karen's own eyes. She watched in horror as we took the stage and announced, The HOA is officially dead. Forever. And Karen? She snapped. You can't do this, she shrieked. Lisa smirked. We just did. Mark waved her off. Enjoy being unemployed. Again. And just like that, Karen Mitchell lost everything. Again. After her second defeat, Karen tried to appeal the decision. She lost. She tried to start a petition. It got 0 signatures. And then, she simply vanished. No one heard from her again. No more HOA drama. No more legal threats. No more Karen. For good. 1 year later, Maplewood Estates was still thriving. No HOA. No pointless rules. No one trying to control us. I stood in my backyard, watching the sunset. Lisa handed me a beer. Mark leaned against the fence. You think she's really gone? He asked. I smirked. Maybe. But if she ever comes back? Lisa grinned. We'll be ready. Because Maplewood Estates was ours. And no HOA tyrant, not even Karen Mitchell, would ever take it away again. It had been 6 months since we destroyed the last HOA election. Karen had been defeated, rejected, and cast out. For the first time in years, Maplewood Estates was truly free. No complaints. No fines. No more Karen. Or so we thought. Then, one morning, Lisa ran to my house, out of breath. Lena, she gasped. Turn on the news. Now. I grabbed the remote, flipped to the local station, and froze. Because on the screen, standing at a podium, surrounded by microphones, was Karen, announcing her campaign for city council. Lisa clutched her head. Oh, my God. Mark walked in, coffee in hand, and nearly spit it out. You have got to be kidding me. I stared at the screen, heart pounding. Karen Mitchell wasn't trying to rebuild the HOA. She was trying to take over the entire city. Karen's speech was full of buzzwords and fake promises. I have dedicated my life to improving communities. I will restore order where there is chaos. We must eliminate non-compliant homeowners who ruin our neighborhoods. Lisa groaned. She's trying to turn the entire city into an HOA. Mark folded his arms. If she wins, she'll have real power. And not just over us, over the entire town. I clenched my fists. This wasn't just about us anymore. If Karen got elected, she could. Fire reinstate the HOA by force. Fire pass laws to control every house, yard, and street in the city. Fire turn every neighborhood into a nightmare of fines and regulations. We had defeated her before. But this? This was bigger than Maplewood Estates. This was a war for the entire town. And I wasn't about to let Karen win. Lisa slammed her laptop shut. We need to stop this. Now. Mark nodded. We need a candidate. Someone who can beat Karen in the election. I raised an eyebrow. Who? The room went silent. Then Lisa and Mark looked at me. I froze. No, absolutely not. Lisa smirked. You're the only one who can do it. Mark grinned. Think about it. You've beaten Karen every time. Who better to make sure she never gets power again? I sighed. Karen had been ruining my life for years. Maybe it was time for me to ruin hers. I took a deep breath. Fine. I grabbed a pen and signed up to run. It was time to end this once and for all. Fire Karen's side was full of wealthy donors, HOA enthusiasts, and corporate developers. Fire my side? The entire town, every homeowner who had ever been harassed, fined, or bullied by an HOA. We campaigned hard. We put up signs. We knocked on every door. We reminded people of Karen's past. Everywhere Karen went, she was met with. Fire, weren't you the woman who banned kids' playsets? Fire, didn't you find someone for their mailbox color? Fire, didn't you board up someone's windows? Her poll numbers collapsed. And when election day came, the results were overwhelming. I won. Karen lost. And the final blow? Fire, she didn't just lose. She lost by the biggest margin in town history. Fire, her name became a joke. Nobody wanted to be associated with her. Fire, she was finished. Forever. After her humiliating defeat, Karen tried to stay in town. She couldn't. Fire, she couldn't get a job. Nobody wanted to hire the most hated woman in the city. Fire, she couldn't live in peace. Every time she went outside, people mocked her. Fire, she had no friends, no allies, and no power. And finally, she moved away. For good. Karen Mitchell was gone. For real this time. And Maplewood Estates was safe. 1 year later, I stood on my porch, sipping coffee. Lisa leaned back. Think she's gone for real? Mark smirked. If she ever tries again, she'll lose. We made sure of that. I smiled. Because Karen wasn't just gone. She was forgotten. No one feared her anymore. No one listened to her anymore. No one cared about her anymore. Her biggest nightmare. And Maplewood Estates would never fall under an HOA again. Not while I was in charge. The HOA? Dead. Karen? Gone, humiliated, erased from the city. The neighborhood? Safe, happy, and thriving. For the first time in years, Maplewood Estates was truly at peace. No more complaints. No more clipboard-wielding tyrants. No more Karen Mitchell. But even when someone like Karen disappears, they never truly leave. Because 6 months later, strange things started happening. It started innocently enough. Lisa checked her mail one morning and found an HOA violation notice, which was impossible because the HOA didn't exist anymore. At first, we thought it was a joke. But then Mark found one too. Then I found one. And soon, every house in the neighborhood had received the same letter. Notice of violation, urgent. Your property has been found non-compliant with community standards. Failure to correct these issues will result in penalties. Sincerely, Maplewood Estates HOA Compliance Department. Lisa held up the paper, shaking her head. But we dissolved the HOA. This is fake, right? Mark flipped through his own letter. There's no address. No contact info. Just a signature. I grabbed his letter and looked at the bottom. And when I saw the name, I felt a chill run down my spine. Signed, Karen Mitchell. There was no way this was real. Karen was gone. Lisa and I searched every public record. Karen had fire no legal ties to Maplewood Estates. Fire no authority to send HOA letters. Fire no way to enforce anything. And yet, fire every single house got a hand-delivered letter. Fire every single violation matched Karen's exact complaints from years ago. Fire nobody saw who delivered them. It was like Karen had risen from the dead. Lisa leaned in. You don't think she's actually back, right? Mark laughed. No way. If she showed her face here, we'd know. But deep down, I wasn't so sure. Because Karen was obsessed. And if anyone could find a way to keep haunting us, it was her. That night, we checked the neighborhood security cameras. We scrolled through the footage from the night before, looking for anyone delivering the letters. For hours, we saw nothing. Then, at exactly 3 a.m., the cameras glitched. For 30 seconds, the footage cut out. When it came back, the letters were already sitting in mailboxes. Lisa's face went pale. That's creepy as hell. Mark muttered, what the hell is going on? I clenched my fists. This wasn't over. Not yet. The next morning, we woke up to something worse. Someone had put up a brand new HOA sign at the neighborhood entrance. Fire Maplewood Estates HOA. Restored. Fire. Fire enforcement begins immediately. Fire. Lisa grabbed the sign and ripped it out of the ground. Who the hell did this? She yelled. Then, behind us, a voice spoke. You people have no respect for order. We froze, turned around, and saw a group of people standing in the street, dressed in gray sweaters, khaki pants, and holding clipboards. Mark squinted. Who the hell are they? One woman stepped forward. We are the Neighborhood Restoration Committee. Lisa crossed her arms. Never heard of you. The woman smirked. You wouldn't have. We've been operating in secret, waiting for the day when Maplewood Estates would be ready to return to proper HOA governance. I felt my stomach drop. This wasn't just some random Karen stunt. Fire, this was an HOA cult. Fire, a group of people who wanted to bring back Karen's reign of terror. Fire, and they weren't going to stop. Lisa took a deep breath. Okay, let's get the crap. Is Karen behind this? The woman smiled. Karen was our founder. The entire street went silent. Mark clenched his fists. So she is back. The woman tilted her head. Karen is no longer here. Lisa frowned. What does that mean? The woman just smirked. You'll see soon enough. And then, they all walked away, like nothing had happened, leaving us with only one horrifying question. What the hell did they mean by that? That night, I did a deep search on Karen's whereabouts. Checked every record, every public database. Nothing, like she had vanished. And then I found it. An obscure news article. Local woman found deceased in apartment, cause unknown. Karen Mitchell, 57, was found in her residence after neighbors reported a foul odor. Authorities believe she passed away several weeks ago. No family members have come forward. My blood ran cold. Lisa peered over my shoulder. Wait, she's dead. Mark's face went pale. Then who the hell sent the letters? And that's when I remembered what the cult woman had said. Karen is no longer here. Lisa took a step back. Oh, hell no. I swallowed hard. Was this a sick joke? Or was Karen Mitchell's hatred for HOAs so strong that she had refused to leave even after death? Because one thing was for sure. Even in the grave, she wasn't done with us yet. 1 week later, another violation letter appeared in my mailbox. Same handwriting. Same fake HOA signature. Same Karen Mitchell. Only this time, it wasn't delivered by hand. Fire the security camera showed nothing. Fire no one saw who put it there. Fire it just appeared. Lisa muttered, I swear to God, if this woman is haunting us. Mark shook his head. I don't believe in ghosts. I took a deep breath. Maybe this was one last prank. Maybe it was the cult keeping her name alive. Or maybe, just maybe, HOA Karen had found a way to enforce rules from beyond the grave. And if that was true, then this fight wasn't over yet. The HOA? Dead. Karen? Legally gone, but something was still watching us. The neighborhood? No longer safe. For years, we had fought Karen Mitchell. For years, she had tried to control our lives. For years, we believed we had finally won. But what if we hadn't? Because even in death, Karen wasn't done with us. The first letter was weird. The second? Unnerving. But by the third violation notice, it was clear. Fire somebody or something was still enforcing HOA rules. Fire nobody ever saw who was delivering the letters. Fire the security cameras kept glitching every time they appeared. And the violations? They weren't new. They were Karen's exact same complaints from years ago. Lisa's flower beds were too unkempt. Mark's fence was half an inch too high. My mailbox was the incorrect shade of taupe. Lisa crumpled her letter. This is bullshit. Mark shook his head. I don't believe in ghosts. Someone's screwing with us. Asterisk, asterisk. I took a deep breath. Then let's figure out who. We stayed up all night. No sleep. No distractions. Just watching, waiting. Fire Lisa's porch camera was set to motion detect. Fire Mark rigged a tripwire with an alarm. Fire I sat outside, flashlight in hand, coffee in the other. At exactly 3 a.m., we heard a soft rustling. Not footsteps. Not a car. Just a presence. Lisa gripped my arm. Do you hear that? I nodded. Then, fire the streetlights flickered. Fire a cold gust of wind rushed past. Fire, and in the blink of an eye, there was another letter in my mailbox. Lisa grabbed my arm. Oh, hell no. Mark slowly walked toward the mailbox. He took a deep breath. Then he opened it. And when he pulled out the letter, we all gasped. Because there, on the bottom of the page, in bold, shaking script, was Karen's handwriting. Mark turned pale. Okay. This has to be a joke. It has to be. Lisa looked at me. Lena, you knew Karen's handwriting better than anyone. Is this real? I studied the letters. The curves. The precise, Karen-like loops. The passive-aggressive slant. My throat went dry. It's her. Lisa stepped back. Nope, I'm out. Mark muttered. We watched her get buried. We saw her leave this town. This isn't possible. And yet, there it was. An HOA violation letter. From a woman who was 6 feet under. Fire was Karen haunting us? Fire was her insane HOA cult behind this? Fire, or was something even worse going on? We needed answers. So we did the one thing we swore we'd never do again. Fire, we called an HOA meeting. Fire. Only this time. It wasn't about rules. It was about survival. The entire neighborhood gathered in my backyard. Nobody had been fined in months. But everyone had received a letter. I stood in front of them, holding the Karen letter. Fire, these are still appearing. Fire, our cameras keep glitching. Fire, Karen is supposed to be dead. Silence. Then, a hand slowly raised. Mrs. Thompson. Our oldest neighbor. She cleared her throat. Karen might be gone. She paused. But her HOA house isn't. The entire yard went silent. I froze. Lisa whispered, "Oh, shit." Mark muttered, "Her house." Because Karen hadn't sold it. Her childhood home, the place she had obsessed over for decades, was still sitting vacant on the other side of the neighborhood. And if her letters were coming from anywhere, it was there. Lisa sighed. Well, looks like we're going on a ghost hunt. Fire, nobody had stepped inside Karen's house since she left. Fire, the city had officially declared it abandoned. Fire, but somehow, the porch light was still on. I took a deep breath. This is stupid. There's no such thing as ghosts. Mark grinned. Then you won't mind going in first. I glared at him. Then I turned the knob and walked inside. The inside of Karen's house was frozen in time. Fire HOA rulebooks covered every table. Fire stacks of violation notices sat in neat, untouched piles. Fire a clipboard rested on the kitchen counter, waiting for someone to pick it up. Lisa shuddered. It's like she never left. Mark picked up a printed HOA form. His face went pale. This is dated yesterday. I grabbed the form from him. He wasn't wrong. Fire Karen's signature was at the bottom. Fire fresh ink. Fire perfectly dated and time-stamped. Lisa took a step back. Okay. What the hell? Mark whispered, she's not here, but something is. And then, from somewhere upstairs, we heard a soft scratching sound, like a pen gliding across paper. Lisa grabbed my arm. We need to leave. Now. But it was too late. Because the hallway light flickered, and we heard a voice. Soft, sharp, unmistakable, non-compliant, violation issued. Fire, we ran out of that house faster than we had ever moved. Fire, we locked the doors behind us. Fire, we swore we'd never go back. But the next morning, another violation letter appeared. Fire, it came from inside Karen's house. Fire, it was written in her exact handwriting. Fire, and nobody had been inside since. Lisa swallowed hard. Karen's dead. She's dead. This isn't possible. Mark exhaled. Then why is she still writing violations? I took a deep breath. Because deep down, we all knew. HOA Karen may be dead. But she wasn't finished. The HOA? Dead. Karen? Buried, but still enforcing rules. The neighborhood? No longer safe. For years, we had fought Karen Mitchell. For years, she had tried to control us. For years, we thought we had finally won. But Karen? She wasn't just haunting us. She was trying to come back. And if we didn't stop her, she would rule Maplewood Estates from beyond the grave. The morning after we broke into Karen's abandoned house, things got worse. Fire, more violation letters appeared. Fire, cameras glitched at 3 a.m., exactly when the letters arrived. Fire, someone or something was trying to bring the HOA back. Lisa grabbed the latest letter and flipped out. This is getting worse. Who the hell is doing this? Mark clenched his jaw. Whoever it is, they're using Karen's exact handwriting. I held up the envelope. And my blood ran cold. Because for the first time, there was an address on the back. Not just any address. Karen's house. We needed answers. We needed to know what was inside Karen's house. So we did the stupidest thing possible. We went back. Fire, the porch light was still on. Fire, the air smelled like old perfume and printer ink. Fire, the front door? Unlocked, waiting for us. Lisa took a deep breath. Okay, let's be quick. We stepped inside. And that's when we saw it. Karen's clipboard. Floating in midair. Mark cursed. Nope. 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 Lisa grabbed my arm. We're leaving. Right now. But before we could move, the clipboard slammed onto the counter, and a pen began writing on its own. We froze. Lisa whispered, "What the hell is it doing?" Mark swallowed. "It's writing a violation notice." And sure enough, when the pen stopped moving, we saw the words. Fire, homeowner noncompliance detected. Fire, violation issued to Lena Carter. Fire, fine, $500. Lisa whispered. This is impossible. Mark shook his head. We need to burn this place down. But before we could run, the lights flickered. The walls shook. And then, we heard a voice. Sharp. Cold. Unmistakable. You can't escape the rules. Lisa screamed. Mark grabbed a chair. And I turned around. And saw her, Karen, standing at the top of the stairs. Fire, her hair perfectly styled, despite being dead. Fire, her arms crossed, clipboard in hand. Fire, her expression? Pure disapproval. Lisa whispered. What the actual F? Karen stepped forward. Her voice echoed. Fire, Maplewood Estates is non-compliant. Fire, you have all been warned. Fire, the rules will return, with or without you. Lisa lost it. She grabbed a vase and hurled it at Karen. It passed right through her. Mark threw a chair. Same result. Karen just smirked. She pointed her pen at me. Fire, Lena Carter, you are the greatest violation of all. Fire, you have resisted order for too long. Fire, now, I will make you comply. Then, the house shook. Karen's form flickered. And before I could react, Fire, she lunged at me. Fire, everything went dark. Fire, and the last thing I heard was, you will follow the rules. I woke up somewhere else. Fire, a neighborhood with identical houses, identical mailboxes, identical lawns. Fire, everything was perfect. Too perfect. Fire, it was like the ultimate HOA dystopia. And in the middle of it all, Karen, sitting on a golden HOA throne. She smiled. Welcome, she said. I swallowed hard. Where the hell am I? Karen stood up, clipboard in hand. You are in the perfect neighborhood. The one I have always dreamed of. I looked around. Everything was too clean. Too still. Lisa and Mark were nowhere to be seen. Karen stepped closer. Here, everyone follows the rules. She gestured to the houses. Fire, no cars and driveways. Fire, no mismatched mailboxes. Fire, no personal decorations. Karen smiled. And now, you will be my first permanent resident. I felt my heart pound. Because suddenly, I couldn't move. Fire, my hands were stuck to my sides. Fire, my feet were rooted to the pavement. Fire, Karen raised her pen, preparing to write me into her HOA forever. Lisa's voice echoed in my head. HOAs hate chaos. And that's when I realized. Fire, Karen had always tried to control me. Fire, she thrived on order. On structure. Fire, but she couldn't handle pure, unstoppable suburban anarchy. So I did the one thing she couldn't stop. I unleashed chaos. Fire, I imagined garden gnomes everywhere. Fire, I thought about 10-foot-tall pink flamingos. Fire, I pictured 1,000 non-regulation mailboxes. And suddenly, Fire, the perfect neighborhood cracked. Fire, the houses warped, twisting into unpredictable colors. Fire, the air rippled as Karen screamed. No! Stop it! You are ruining everything. The ground split open beneath us. Karen tried to hold on to her world. But I ripped it apart. And then, Fire, everything exploded. Fire. I gasped. Opened my eyes. I was back in Karen's real house. Fire, the clipboard was burning. Fire, the letters were crumbling into ash. Fire, Karen's presence? Completely gone. Lisa helped me up. Are you okay? I nodded, still shaking. Mark kicked over the smoldering clipboard. She's gone. I exhaled. Yeah, for real this time. Because Karen? She hadn't just been a ghost. She had been trying to turn Maplewood Estates into her personal hellscape. But now? Fire, her power was broken. Fire, her rules were gone. Fire, and the last traces of HOA Karen? Burned to nothing. Lisa smirked. So, does this mean we win? I grinned. Yeah, we finally won. The HOA? Destroyed forever. The neighborhood? Free at last. Karen? Banished, defeated, but still haunting us. For years, she had tried to control everything. For years, she had ruined lives with her endless rules. Even in death, she had tried to enforce order from beyond the grave. But this time, we weren't just going to stop her. We were going to punish her. We knew one thing for sure. Karen wasn't just haunting her old house. She was trapped inside it. Somehow, her twisted HOA obsession had anchored her to the property. And that was the key to ending her reign forever. Lisa smirked. If Karen's ghost is tied to this house. Mark cracked his knuckles. We just need to make sure she never leaves. I grinned. Let's build her a perfect prison. We didn't call ghost hunters. We didn't call a priest. We called the city. Fire, we reported Karen's house as an extreme code violation. Fire, we filed paperwork to have it legally condemned. Fire, we used the city's own bureaucracy, the thing Karen worshipped, to trap her forever. And guess what? It worked. The city approved the demolition in 48 hours. The entire neighborhood gathered to watch. Fire, the demolition crew arrived. Fire, the wrecking ball was raised. Fire, and Karen's house, her shrine to HOA tyranny, was about to be erased. The wind picked up. The air turned cold. And for the last time, we heard her voice. You can't destroy the rules. The entire house shook. But it was too late. The wrecking ball swung forward. Fire boom. The walls collapsed. Fire boom. The clipboard snapped in two. Fire boom. And with one final roar of destruction, Karen Mitchell's house was nothing but rubble. And her spirit? Gone. For good. We made sure nobody ever rebuilt on that land. Instead, Fire, we turned it into a playground. Fire, we named it Freedom Park. Fire, and we put up a plaque that read, "No HOAs allowed." Lisa grinned. If Karen could see this, she'd be losing her damn mind. Mark laughed. That's the best punishment of all. I looked around. For the first time in years, there were no fines, no complaints, no Karen, just families playing in the space she used to control. And that was the ultimate justice. Because Karen Mitchell hadn't just lost. She had been forgotten. And for her, that was worse than death.